All right, and we're back with Michael from Eagle Imports. And so before we went to break, we were talking about Shaneen Allen and the situation with Shaneen Allen. So now I think it's about time that we actually start talking about some guns.
Yes. All right. So we know Shaneen Allen got caught with the greatest gun on the planet.
Here you go, Michael.
So we already know that, which is the Versa Thunder 380. This is the greatest gun on the planet. But okay. So just a short recap of what I do. I actually represent gun manufacturers all across the world who aren't big enough to have their own representation in the United States, right?
Gotcha.
So they basically call on me to handle everything like as if I were an employee of them in the United States. So I have a gun from Argentina, which is called Versa. I have about 4 lines from the Philippines, which is from a company called Metro Arms. They do American Classic, Mac, SPS, and Llama. Which, we talked about last time when I was on the show briefly. And then I have a gun from Slovakia, which is called Grand Power. So and then I have another gun from Argentina called Comanche, which is a revolver line. It's a low-end revolver line, but it's actually a very good gun. So I have about 4 gods that I answer to with egos that are manufacturers that all have the greatest gun on the planet. So,
you're a polygamist, polytheist.
Yes. So I don't know. Where do you want to start? We talked about Versa a little bit. It's a very well-known gun. Over the years,
I didn't even know Versa was foreign, to be honest with you.
Really?
I've known about Versa for a while. I thought it was I thought it was here in the States.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I want. That's why I'm doing Avidity Arms. I know you got Rob Pincus on.
Yeah.
Because I want to start my own thing in the United States because I'm tired of just being part of that. Like, oh, you don't have anything American made. Like, if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But I want to. What?
In dealing with some of these other foreign countries, what is their perspective in terms of the firearm culture in America versus in the places where they are now? And in those places, is the firearm culture synonymous, laws withstanding, of course, synonymous to the culture that we have here in America with respect to firearms?
Well, I would say that the closest one is in the Philippines. They have very similar. It's a very similar way, like the United States.
Yeah.
The other places, no, it's not.
Yeah, I figured as much.
It's different.
Yeah.
So it's very.
So it's interesting because it's like how do they thrive in some of these places that are so restricted from a firearm standpoint? You know what I mean? Some of the gun companies out there.
It's a world market. That's the crazy.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, like, for example, Grand Power, huge in Russia. If you went to Russia, like a Grand Power, the craziest thing about the industry, and I want to tell you this real quick. I don't want to get away from my guns.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it's these little stories that. So when I first got in the industry, I knew nothing about guns.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I was a product of nepotism. So, and I'm not going to say the company that had the gun failure. Yeah. But I'm on the range and I'm watching the guy from High Point. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he is just hitting a grouping, boom, 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 boom. And then there's said company B right next to him, and the guy's gun is stovepiping. If I walked away from the industry that day, I literally would be like, you don't want to mess with this company which is a very well-known publicly traded company.
That's crazy how that's nuts. That's crazy how that works, though.
Right. So, it's one of those things where I don't have those like prejudices against certain things. Like I look at everything and I'm like, this is neat. So whereas you get wrapped up in the big names, the Rugers, the Smith & Wessons, the guys with the $1 million.
Thank you for calling me a fanboy.
You admitted it.
You're right, though. No, you're absolutely right. You do. I can speak for myself, but then I can say with confidence too that a lot of us here in this country, we do get wrapped up in the big house names, and we get this kind of really narrow focus on firearms and don't really give a lot of other firearms outside of those powerhouses a chance. And maybe rightfully so, maybe not. I don't know, but that is the case.
Well, I think it's not rightfully so because it's one of those things. Like I said, go to Russia, Grand Power, you're going to be like, that's the gun. You go to Argentina and you look at all the cops, and they have bursas on their hips.
Gotcha.
You're like, all right, if the cops carry it, then it must be a great gun. It's funny. I guess it's the David Hasselhoff thing in Germany. If he was talking to abroad, right, he'd be like, "Look, my music is in Germany. I don't care what the U.S. thinks." But so that's always one of the things. But back to your original point, going back to like the climate and everything like that. Interesting story about Argentina. Argentina, you actually have to go to get a psychological exam to buy a gun. You can't just walk into a store there and buy a gun. It's wild.
Yeah, that is. I know to some people they'd be like, yeah, that's the way it should be. And I'm like, no, you moron. There's no real standard. But anyway, I personally, I'm totally against that. The whole idea of forcing people to get them into a psychological evaluation to own a firearm, just because clearly, what standard are we using to determine that? Like, I mean, and it can be easily influenced to swayed against firearm ownership, as we've seen in places like Jersey, where you have politicians influencing certain laws just because they have an agenda against firearms. So
right. Yeah. No, it's one of the most interesting stories that I had about. I was sitting with one of the competition shooters that Bursa employs. Mm-hmm. You know, they have their own competition shooting team. And the guy, we were sitting at a lunch one time, and I'm down in Buenos Aires, and the guy goes, "How many times have you been robbed at gunpoint by a gun in the United States?" And I go, "Never." Never. I grew up poor.
Is there a point to this moronic question? Yeah, right.
And he goes, "Oh, that's funny." He goes, "Because I've been robbed like 3 times by gunpoint in Buenos Aires." And he goes, "Guns aren't legal here."
Holy crap. So that's not where I thought the story was going, to be honest with you. I thought you were going to tell me the guy's like, well, so then why do you feel like you need to have a gun, so to speak?
No,
yeah.
It's totally the opposite. It was funny because he's like, "You Americans, your freedom is so important." And he's like, he's like, I'm impressed by that. Yeah. But at the same time, he's like, it's kind of weird that they freak out about guns there. And he's like, the rest of the world, he's like, this bad stuff does happen.
Yeah. And people act, and the thing is, it's like the people who like to use them as an example don't realize that. They only focus on, well, they have these laws here and it's just utopia because it's some foreign country. It's like that article I read a long time ago where they were talking about American women's perception of foreign men, and then foreign men's perception of American women when they go over to their country. It's just such a different mindset. But then also on top of that, when I actually did a tweet not too long ago where I was like, it's interesting how you have people from like the UK who would criticize our Second Amendment rights here, and then say, well, there's something wrong with you Americans over there and your guns. And I'm like, that's kind of like the stripper that has a pimp looking at the stripper that doesn't have a pimp and saying, you're keeping too much of your own money, girl. You need to change that. Like, what? Like, no. Like I like
that is awesome.
I like my freedom. Like, I know you like it too. Just don't try to bring me into your misery. Like I know it sucks for you. I don't want to be a part of it. I know misery loves company, but I'm going to stay over here and you stay over there. But again, we've run out of time, and I think I was responsible for that.
I'm segueing my way into a third. I just keep talking, and you got to keep bringing me on. So.
Hey, man, I'm not mad at the hustle, man. Whoever's paying you, they need to keep paying you. But no, man, thanks very much, Mike. It was a pleasure, man. You have an open door policy here, man. So anytime you want on the show, let us know.
Hey, how about this? Let's make a promise to ourselves that the next time I come on and actually talk about the products that I represent. Please?
Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
I'm ready whenever you are.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
This is always fun for me.
Oh, man, it's a blast for me too, man. Man, you have a good one, though.
All right, you too.
All right, man.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today on Seeing Live. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. And I'm Colion Noir, and I'm out.